and you're listening to my new podcast, The Dale Show. The Dale Show! Is that cheesy enough? Should I go cheesier? I don't know. This is the first time that I've done it solo, so it's hard. Because usually, like, if you saw my other podcast, The Outrage Factory, you would know that that's always a two-man job, or one man, one woman. I don't think we've ever done just two women. I'm not trying to be, like, sexist and exclude anybody, but I don't think we've recorded any episode with just one woman and one or two women. That said, I'm Dale. I already said that. I'm a little nervous. This is the first time I've done this by myself, which was why I was just rambling. But I'm starting a new podcast. This one's called The Dale Show. And I just wanted to do this because I kind of just wanted to talk about anything I wanted. The first chunk are probably going to be about the Bible. Well, the first one is going to be about the Annunaki and Zecharia Sitchin and a little bit of Graham Hancock and how that got me to actually want to revisit the Bible. Because full disclosure, I grew up in a church. Well, I didn't grow up in the church. I grew up and my parents made me go to the church until I was 16. It was pretty much right up until the point where they said, Dale, you don't have to go to church anymore. And then I immediately stopped because I don't know if you've ever been to church before, but it's not exactly the funnest time. Oh, after saying that, I guess I should also warn people, if you came here because I'm talking about the Bible and you're a Christian and you don't want to get offended by swear words or me pointing out where the Bible is accidentally hilarious, please leave now. Or, I mean, if you want to come along for the ride and just get butthurt as I go because I disrespected it, I'm not going to outright disrespect the Bible, because overall, I think the Bible's good. It teaches us all proper morality and how to exist as a society as a whole. And if we don't have, like, basic rules, like the 10 Commandments, I guess, like, if we don't have those and people are just out there murdering each other, life's not going to be very good. So the way I see it, the Bible is a good kind of moral compass, as you could say. Well, some of it is, because some of it I'm going to point out, like where they get into a little bit of the warrior gene or whatever, and they start just fucking killing everybody. Like, there's this part in the Bible where God says, go to that city and kill everything that breathes. That's not really the moral compass I want to say I'm okay with. It's more the New Testament is the good moral compass that I want to like put my badge of approval on, like where Jesus says turn the other cheek and be nice to everybody and do unto others as you will do unto yourself. Like, that's basically my motto for life, is to do unto others. Like, if you don't want someone to do something to you, don't do it to someone else. Like, that's a pretty good way to live your life. And then that way, hopefully, you won't get too much crap that you're not into, and like you won't get, I don't know, beat up for no reason or anything. If you noticed a little snap cut there, it's because I edited out me taking a drink of water. Because one of the other bad habits from podcasting that I got from doing it with multiple people is drinking water a lot. And I'm not going to put you through listening to me take gulps of water or watching me. I mean, if you want to watch me drink water, I guess you could send me some feedback on this podcast and be like, hey, Dale, why don't you give us a supercut of all the times you drink water on your podcast that you edited out? And then you can, I don't know, do what the internet does with dumb videos, make me super popular and rich, and then I can have a bunch of money. I mean, that'd be pretty cool to be pretty rich. But let's get back on track. So, if you see my other podcasts, you know I'm not really a religious person who talks about being religious and how much he loves God and stuff. And then you might ask yourself, Dale, why are you doing a show on the Bible? This seems out of your wheelhouse, so to speak. And the answer is because of now, is the Anunnaki considered a conspiracy theory? That's one weird thing. Like, because, like, conspiracy theories, you hear about it, and you're like, well, the JFK stuff, that's a conspiracy theory. 9/11, that's a conspiracy theory. But saying that God and the angels from the Bible were aliens, does that count as a conspiracy theory, or is that just like an alternate history thing? Like, is Ancient Aliens considered a conspiracy theory? Like, I guess you could count it as a conspiracy theory because it's something that people are conspiring to withhold from everybody. Because this guy, Zecharia Sitchin, he came up with this theory of the Anunnaki, and a lot of people are shooting it down and trying to keep it on the DL because they don't want everybody to hear it. So let's just say it's a conspiracy theory. That way I don't have to think of some other weirdo term for it, like occluded histories. That's just what people say when they don't want to say conspiracy theory. Like, I have a guy I consider my conspiracy guru, but he hates the term conspiracy theory because it's been lambasted and kind of like shown to be like it's like it's had enough attention on conspiracy theory, the term, that they have devalued any information you would find out about it. Like, if you think about like Alex Jones now, nobody takes him seriously. Nobody gives credit to anything he says except for like a couple wackadoos because he's been kind of like, I don't know, there's got to be a word for this that I'm just not thinking of, right? Like a word for like now I can't even think of the word that I want the word to stem off of. Deserializing. Like, this is so dumb. I'll probably cut this out and Google it and then like be like, oh, this is the word I thought of. But I'm probably not going to edit it out because I barely edit out anything on podcasts because it wrecks the flow. I mean, I'm not even going to like editing out all the times I take a sip because it kind of makes it chunky. Like, you know, when you're listening to podcasts and like you have the rhythmic flow of the conversation, then it just seems stuttery. Like, one of the people on the podcast said and ah too much, like when they're talking. Like how I say like all the time. Imagine if I edited all those out and it was just like chop, 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 chop. And then it kind of wrecks the flow of it. It's not like, it doesn't make it so you might not even notice how bad the flow is. You might be like, ooh, but it's kind of like subconsciously like a stutter, I guess. It would be like inserting a stutter into the overall conversation instead of one person's voice. So I'm going to try to edit this as little as possible so that doesn't actually happen. But it's funny because I was going to I better record a lot so that when I edit it down, like when I take sips of water out, that I'll still have enough to make like a podcast episode. But I basically haven't gotten anywhere yet, and we're this deep in. So I guess I should stop rambling and get right to it. So basically, I wanted to give you guys kind of an introductory, because the first thing I'm going to do with my podcast is I'm going to talk about the Bible and stuff in the Bible. Maybe like right now, what happened was, okay, full disclosure, down to it. I'm going to try get a linear conversation with myself going. I would be the worst person who heard voices in his head because I can't even talk just myself and keep it like a linear, like cohesive thought. Like, imagine if I had schizophrenia and I just had like 3 different people. Like, imagine if you have schizophrenia and the voices inside your head all have ADHD and they can't focus on anything. Like, you just have like 3 different conversations in your head about something and none of them would be like connecting the dots. It would just be like jumbledness. So it's a good thing I'm not, and I don't have schizophrenia. And I'm not saying anybody who has schizophrenia is less of a person in any way. I'm just saying that if I had schizophrenia and each of the voices inside of my head, that's probably not even proper to say anymore. Speaking of not being continuous, like is it okay to say schizophrenia is voices in your head, or is it like is it one of those things that they determined is a mental disorder that has very specific things, and that me saying it's just voices in your head is kind of lampooning it a bit? Okay, let's stop talking about it because it doesn't mean anything. Okay, now back to the Anunnaki and what it is. So I kind of like, I keep wanting to go back so far. Okay, so I started listening to ebooks and podcasts while I work. And one of the ebooks I started listening to was Zecharia Sitchin. I think it was called The Anunnaki Reader. There's something that I should have looked up, eh? The book is called The Annunaki Chronicles. It's a Zecharia Sitchin reader. So it's kind of goes over, because Zecharia Sitchin talks about the Anunnaki a lot, but the Anunnaki reader kind of compresses and takes stuff from like his live speeches that he gave at universities, his books like The 12th Planet, which is like where he starts talking about the Anunnaki and stuff. So the Anunnaki reader I recommend to everybody. I wouldn't say take it for gospel. there's my Bible podcast pun. Take it for gospel. Yeah, like I wouldn't put too much credence in it and kind of basically treat it like fact, because if you do that and you talk to people like you do, they'll just make fun of you. And from personal experience, if you tell people that God and the angels in the Bible were aliens, they're going to ask a couple follow-up questions, and then you're going to realize that you didn't do enough research to basically lambast a good number of people on planet Earth's entire religion. So that I don't have to do all the research. Like, I listened to the book, but I have the memory of a goldfish and I can't remember anything. So I'm going to give you basically like, not the Cliff Notes, because I'm not even going to go that in depth. I'm going to give you like, what would be like abbreviated Cliff Notes? I guess like, I'll give you like a few points so that you understand what the Anunnaki is. How does that sound? Okay. The Anunnaki and what they are. So I've said it like numerous times already that the Anunnaki is aliens. So what Zecharia Sitchin did was he took, what was it? He was reading the Hebrew version of the Bible. So if you don't know, like if you're brand new, like never read the Bible before. So what happened was the Bible is a collection of many works all put together in sort of one amalgamation. There's a word specifically for this that I can't remember. Okay, I Googled it, and now I'm back, and I kind of don't even want to tell you the word, because when I say I couldn't think of the word anthology, and I had to go Google what a group of stories is called, and it says anthology, it makes it sound like you're gonna ask yourself, you're like, if Dale can't remember the word anthology, why should I listen to a podcast of just him? Because that might be a harbinger of doom for the rest of the podcast. But I'm just gonna say the same thing I say to my girlfriend. Please ignore everything bad I do and focus on the good stuff, because then I'll be a better person, right? Okay, so back on track to why I was starting to talk about the word anthology when I couldn't think of it, and you all lost so much faith in me. There's another Bible pun. Faith. Boom. Oh, I'm rocking this, right? Come for the Bible stories, stay for the dad puns. What's up? So anyways, the book by Zecharia Sitchin, The Annunaki Reader, is an anthology of all the various Anunnaki information that he had put out. Like, he has a series of books. The first one's the 12th planet in that. And then he's done talks at schools, and he wrote letters and essays, and all this is in this wonderful book, so you don't have to go spend hundreds and I was going to say hundreds of millions, but it's not going to cost that much. But it would cost probably hundreds of bucks to get all these books. Like, I get them all on audiobook. So basically I was listening to Zecharia Sitchin's The Anunnaki Reader, and he was saying that oh wait, that's not what I was talking about, anthology. Oh my god. I was talking about anthology because that's what the Bible is. That is a great faux pas on my part. I'm sorry, but I'm back on track now. The Bible is an anthology of a lot of books that various holy people, I think the disciples each wrote parts of it. There's letters, like Paul, the book of Paul, I think, is all letters from Paul to someone else. Same with Corinthians and stuff. But it's this anthology of all these different books put together, and that's the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament. Remember earlier when I said if you're like an actual devout Christian person, I might offend you? This also goes for some of the blind sides in my lack of Bible knowledge, because when I went to the church as a kid, I wasn't really too keen on studying the Bible and remembering where all the pieces of it came from. But from what I understand, the first 5 books of the Bible are called the Torah, and that basically includes Genesis. Here, I'm gonna look them up because, like, I know them, but I feel like I'm gonna say them out of order, and somebody's gonna get mad. So there's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and those are the 5. And that, like, when people say the Hebrew Bible, I don't think they mean just those 5, but those 5 make up the Torah. And the Hebrew Bible is like, so basically that's the start of the Bible that you would see. Anyway, so the Bible that I'm using for this podcast, or every time I talk about the Bible, is the New Revised Standard Version. And it's a funny story because the reason I picked this Bible over the 30 to 50 other versions of the Bible out there is there is no good reason. It's because when I was on Audible and I was picking which Bible I wanted to listen to, I just picked the one that had the best narrator, and that ended up being the New Revised Standard Version. But I'm happy I picked it because there's this hilarious, because I don't know if it's specific to this, but I grew up on the King James Version in the church. I went to Christian Reformed. It's a very heavily Dutch church. It's kind of like conservative. So they don't let like the words fly as much in the Bible, and when they translate stuff, like every version of the Bible is like somebody. So what they did was Hebrew doesn't really translate into English that well, so people just like wrote it down in English and very many other languages. Actually, I think it went like Hebrew to Arabic to whatever the precursor of English was. It's another thing you can make fun of me for not knowing. So anyways, basically, the most important thing to remember about the Bible and all versions of the Bible is they all stem from the Hebrew version of the Bible. But you can't translate things, and so each version of the Bible is a little bit different. I like the New Revised Standard Version because there's just one spot in the Bible. This will give you a clear example of where this is going, because there's this one. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna give you the exact right quote, because don't you love how people like quote scripture and they're like, boom, I just quoted scripture to you. That makes it super important and makes what I said sound way smarter than if I hadn't. I'm probably going to quote a bunch of scripture today. Like when I'm talking about Anunnaki, there's like Nephilims and stuff, and that's basically when the Anunnaki had their sex with regular human women, and they made half Anunnaki, half human people. Or if you would prefer, every time I say Anunnaki, just you can interswitch it with angels. So I found the actual quote from the scripture, I guess you could say, which sounds way more badass than just a quote. So the actual scripture, and the reason I like this Bible the best, is because as follows. Deuteronomy chapter 10 verse 16 reads as follows: circumcise then the foreskin of your heart, and do not be stubborn any longer. I'm a child. And circumcise the foreskin of your heart is what I was talking about when I said the Bible is accidentally hilarious, or unintentionally hilarious is a better way to say it. And like I looked up a different version of the Bible and it just said circumcise your heart. But this book, my favorite version, the New Revised Standard Version, has the word foreskin in there. So that's why Dale is happy that this is the Bible that he chose to use. That was yet another long runaround. Okay, back to Zecharia Sitchin and why all of this matters. So what happened was, along with the ancient Sumerian texts, which I haven't read because they're ancient, they're Sumerian. I have no idea where to look for them. I guess I could have probably Googled it, but I wanted to start with the Bible because Zecharia Sitchin combined ancient Sumerian texts with his study of the Hebrew Bible to come up with his Anunnaki hypothesis, I guess you could say. And since I had gone to church for 16 years when I was a kid, I wanted to start with the Bible because I thought I knew the Bible because, you know, like you hear stuff from in the Bible, like they tell you all the parables and all the story of like Noah and Moses, but listening to the audiobook of the Bible, I feel like they all kind of left a lot of stuff out, and that's actually one of the reasons why I got into. So basically, the reason that Dale started this podcast. So here's the point. Here's the goods. Here's the stuff that I think is the goods. The Anunnaki. So, after Zecharia Sitchin read the Hebrew Bible, and in the Anunnaki reader that I was talking about before, it's kind of like his light bulb moment with the Anunnaki and like there being more to the Bible than he was led to believe by his elders and the people who read to him, was when he was a schoolboy. They were studying the Hebrew Bible, and the word Nephilim came up. And a lot of people kind of just, when people talk about Nephilim in the Bible, they're like, oh, those are giants. Because the thing about the Bible is a lot of people pick and choose what they want you to hear. And that's another reason why I'm just going front to back and listening to it. And it's very enlightening, and it is very, very tedious. So his light bulb moment was, oh, this word doesn't mean giant, it means Nephilim. And then he went to look up what Nephilim was, and then he cross-referenced it with the ancient Sumerian text, and it turns out that their multitude of gods was actually what the Hebrew Bible had interpreted into one god, or the group called Anunnaki. So let's get in to the origin of the Anunnaki, because you're going to find this super dope, because I thought it was super dope. So there's this planet, and it's just past Neptune, and it's called Nibiru. And this is planet, when you're hearing like conspiracy theories, when people are like Wormwood or Planet X, I think they're referring to this. So there's this planet Nibiru, and it's on this, like, I'm making an oval with my hand if you're just listening to it, thinking that this is just going to explain everything away. But there's like, it's on an elliptical orbit that goes out past Neptune and back all the way around into like close enough to Earth so that you could send a spaceship across. More into that later. So this planet is doing this big elliptical thing, and it completes this elliptical orbit once every 3,600 years. So that means Nibiru will come into like close enough range to make contact with Earth once every 3,600 years. And so the way that the Sumerians and I guess Zecharia Sitchin believed that the Earth was actually made was there used to be this other planet. The planet was called Tiamat. 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 I'm only telling you that in case I pronounce it wrong, because I've been known to pronounce words wrong, and I don't want to I don't want that to be what stops you from finding more knowledge about this planet for yourself. Okay, so Nibiru's on this big elliptical journey, 3,600 years. It whips way out past Neptune, whips back in, and then there's this planet Tiamat, and one of the moons from Nibiru smashes dead center into Tiamat and splits it into what would later become the Earth. But at this point, it's just a big hunk. So it's like most of what Tiamat was. And then there's like the moon chunk is off to the side too. And then there's this asteroid belt, which is very important, but I'm not going to talk about today because I don't know enough about it. But anyways, like as the Nibiru flung around and the moon from Nibiru hit Tiamat, it blew it up, and it caused a whole bunch of comets that are just randomly out in space now. We don't have to worry about those. The asteroid belt. Wait, is it the Perseid asteroid belt? It's that one we go through every 6 months, and then we have the huge meteor storm. It's because the Earth is going on a circle through that asteroid belt, which makes sense because they used to be part of the same planet, so you figure it would go through the same area of the wreckage. Funnily enough, they think that asteroid belt is the what caused the dinosaurs to die, because the Earth just hit a giant chunk in there. But hopefully all the big Earth-wrecking chunks in that asteroid belt are gone by now, because Jupiter sucked them all up like a vacuum. I keep bringing up all this science stuff that I should probably be a nice guy and look up for you. Okay, basically, the reason the Earth is still this is like a bracket comments. The reason the Earth is still around is because Jupiter is so big that the gravity of it just sucks up all these random asteroids throughout our solar system. So nice guy Earth, who's a little bit smaller than Jupiter, doesn't have as much gravity, can go through without hitting them. Think of it like if you're, I don't even know what. Basically, think of it like a big planet with a lot of gravity goes through this area and sucks up all these little rocks so that this other little planet can go through after and doesn't get all the handsome guys who make podcasts extinct by hitting one of those big rocks. I'm sorry, this is just the way this podcast is going to be. It's going to be Dale starts talking about something, and then he just like goes off on a tangent, and then he starts talking about that, and then he loses track of where he was before, and then he has to backtrack to... Oh, wait. I remembered. Nibiru's moon hits... do you remember when I said this was going to be like a super short, cut down explanation of what the Anunnaki was, and then I just keep fucking pumping on like layers and all this other random stuff, like Jupiter sucking up comments. Wouldn't that be okay? Total aside, I promise I'll get back to it. But wouldn't that be great if all of our social media had its own Jupiter that just went through and sucked up all the negative comments, and then us could go through our feeds and not have our feelings hurt? But I guess you should see the comments that would hurt your feelings to kind of toughen you up. Okay, back to Nibiru's moon. So it smashes Tiamat, makes what would become Earth in a couple more steps. I don't want to say it's Earth yet because it's just a hunk of ball with the moon kind of floating there, and then it goes back on that like See, the weird part is it doesn't say if this happens on the same 3,600 year swing, like if it's like bang bang, the moon, then Nibiru itself, or if it's like bang, whoop, bang. Okay. So what Zecharia Sitchin was saying was first the moon from Nibiru hits Tiamat and blows it up into fucking asteroids, comets, Earth. I keep saying comments. I'm sorry. Comets. That's not how you say it either. I'm so bad at podcasting. Comets. So Nibiru's moon hits Tiamat. I've said this sentence like 100 times. I promise. Okay, let's just pretend it's bang bang. That'll be the easiest way to say it. So it comes in, the moon of Nibiru hits Tiamat. Then Nibiru itself hits Earth. Now this is very important for multiple reasons. One, because it knocks the hunk of like space rock that would be Earth into orbit around the sun so that it stays on like a steady orbit, and basically all life on Earth can grow and flourish and be good to each other. But the other reason this is popular is since Nibiru and Earth were just like, up in space, just all up in each other's mouth on mouth, like they say they hit each other. But can two planets really hit each other without smooching as they're doing it? So while these two planets are smooching, and it's totally romantic, and you know why it's romantic? Because whatever life was on Nibiru or the early version of Earth kind of spreads, kind of goes from one to the other. I'm not going to propose which one had the first life and which one didn't. All I'm going to say is this is the reason. This will come back later in our story. So basically, these two hit. Earth goes around Sun. It starts its own life and stuff on its own pace. And this was supposed to be 450,000 years ago. So I don't know. Is that when life started on planet Earth? Because I thought life started like billions of years ago. I mean, if you're a scientist, comment that. Don't make fun of me for my lack of the evolutionary sciences knowledge. So anyways, so Nibiru, kind of now that he got what he wanted, a nice smooch from planet Earth, just goes back out past Neptune, and then so life on these two different planets kind of evolves separately. So if you're like read Darwin, I don't know, did Darwin explain how human life evolved, or did he just say evolution exists? Anyway, so basically like the way humans evolved was like fish came on land, they made all the reptiles and stuff and mammals, and then they went back, and then I shouldn't have even brought that up because that's a contentious thing. Did you know that mammals like whales, the reason that there's a difference between whales and sharks, like sharks are fish and whales are mammals, is because there was this creature that after fish came up on land and turned into mammals and started breathing air, some of them were like, fuck this place, I like the ocean better, and they went back in, and then they turned back into aquatic creatures, and that's why whales breathe air. You're welcome. Science with Dale. Okay, So, since life on these two planets grew separately and evolved separately, the people on Nibiru were called Anunnaki. So they turn into, like, they get super advanced because they're like fucking trucking, and they get super advanced, and they only come to Earth once every 3,600 years. So what they do is they're like, oh, Earth has a whole bunch of minerals that we don't have on our planet anymore because we evolved and got so scientific. We used up all our bullshit on our planet. So we're going to go to Earth and we're going to get all their tasty, tasty golds. And this is one of the reasons why they think like the Incas and the Olmecs and the Aztecs, why they all had such a infatuation with gold when they didn't really have a purpose for it. Because unless you're using gold for electronics or like plating and like electricity and stuff, it's not really that good of a metal. Like, it doesn't make good armor because it's so soft that it just dents and crushes you. But what it is it's super so the reason that modern people like gold is because it's super conductive, and that's why all like computers will have like gold plating on all their electrical connections, so that the electricity slash energy slash information slash stuff Dale doesn't know what it is because he doesn't know computers, that goes through gold really fast. But if you're like the Aztec people and you're just like a warrior tribe, you're not going to want to make stuff out of gold. It's not like you're going to make pots out of gold. It's not like you're going to make tools out of gold. So there's no reason for them to have it. But what they're saying is one of the reasons that they loved it so much was because the Anunnaki came to Earth in the first place. Like, they came here because they wanted gold. And this is a dumb reason why they want gold. Like, they ran out of gold on their own planet. And this is where the whole Anunnaki thing falls apart, because they wanted to mine gold on Earth and send it back to Nibiru like the next time it whooped around, because their atmosphere on their planet had dilapidated, and it had like they had global warming on Nibiru, so they wanted to spread gold dust in the air to cool down the Earth. Now, if you know anything about science and outer space and stuff, it's that basically if you have a planet that goes from Neptune to Earth, there's no way an atmosphere is going to work, because that's just going to basically super cook it every time it comes down to Earth and super cool it every time it goes out to Neptune. So this is the main fallacy of Zecharia Sitchin's Anunnaki coming from Nibiru, is because the planet would freeze every time it went out past Neptune. And like Earth, the reason we have seasons is because the Earth spins on a tilted axis, and it goes around the sun like this. Like, say this is the sun, it goes around like this, and when the tilt is away from the Earth, or sorry, when the tilt is away from the sun, we get winter. When it goes around to the other side of the sun, like, it takes a whole year for the Earth to go around the sun, and when the tilt is towards the sun, that's when we have summer. So Earth, which stays the exact same distance away from the sun, there's probably like a little wobble in the orbit that I'm sure some scientists will be happy to tell me about. But anyways, so Earth stays the same distance away from the sun, and we get different seasons with like a vast difference of temperature. So if a planet is whipping all the way out to Neptune and back, there's no way in hell that that's gonna like work unless like the planet had its own enclosed like Dyson sphere sort of thing. But then if they had that, they wouldn't need the gold to turn into powder to put into the atmosphere. So I just told you why this whole Anunnaki thing doesn't work. And I know that, but the whole reason that I'm talking about the Anunnaki is it's because it's what got me into thinking I was going to listen to the Bible in the first place. So, bullshit aside, the reason that the Anunnaki was on Earth mining gold was they wanted to make powder and put it in their atmosphere. Now, I just told you why they wouldn't do that, and there'd be no reason to. But let's not ruin a good story with plot holes, right? Let's just suspend our disbelief. So, what happens is the Anunnaki who got sent to Earth to mine gold, which basically, if you're going to this primitive planet and you're leaving like fucking super dope Chillsville planet Nibiru, you're gonna be upset. So all these people who are on Earth mining gold in Africa and stuff, they started in Africa, then they went to South America. That's the story. That's the basic storyline. So they get upset. They're like, yo, Enki, Enki, who is like, I don't know if he's like head Anunnaki guy or if he's like part of HR that like talks from the planet Nibiru to Earth, but he's like one of the main Anunnakis because they have like a hierarchical societal system that since Zecharia Sitchin made all this up, you'd have to go to him for. But Enki decides that he's gonna take the hominids that are on Earth and he's going to splice the DNA from the Anunnaki and put it into what? Homo Erectus? Basically, he took the DNA from the Anunnaki and put it in humans' ancestors. So basically, Enki takes some, like they do this in science because Nibiru is like super technological advanced. I'm not gonna be vulgar and say that they did this the old-fashioned way when you put your genes into someone else, and that is to have sex. But they did it in like probably whatever test tubes Anunnakis had, and they came up with Homo sapiens. And they took these Homo sapiens and they made them mine for gold. So this is what I was talking about before when I got all off track about capacitors and stuff and conductivity, which I couldn't think of back then. In the Bible, Zecharia Sitchin says this is where Adam came from because it's like if you look in the Bible, it's God created man in his own image and gave him a wife and stuff. Actually, it's a funny thing. Since I was listening to the Bible, now there's two different stories. Like if you go to Genesis, this is me getting off track yet again. If you go to Genesis chapter 1, it talks about the regular creation that you've probably all heard about, like the 6 days where God made like the lightness and the dark and then the planet and all this stuff. But if you go to Genesis 2, 4, it says halfway through, this is also weird. Like this is like the first page of the Bible and it's already getting like fucking like, this doesn't make sense. This is weird. So Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, there's a sentence, and then there's this whole this whole subhead. It's called Another Account of the Creation. And in this account of how God made Adam, it says they made him out of dirt. Which, if you're like me, and you've been hearing the first part where it's like God made man in his own image and like made Eve and put them in all that stuff, then you're like, yeah, that makes sense. But then you're like, wait, what? They just made him out of dirt? Like, which one is it? So that is a little test or a little taste of my whole problem with the Bible is like actually funny story. You know how you talk to conspiracy theorists and stuff, and they can always remember when they got red pilled. I think my red pilling, it wasn't like one thing. It wasn't like Zecharia Sitchin when he realized that the Nephilim weren't just giants. Mine was, I would see stuff like this in the Bible in my childhood, and I'd ask like my elders, like in Sunday school, I'd be like, what's up with this conflicting information here? And then the priest told me, there's some questions you don't ask. And then I was like, oh, shit. I can't take any of this seriously because some of it conflicts with other stuff. So basically my red pilling was gradual and just like the Bible not making sense because it conflicts with itself in parts. And then I started to like, yeah. So anyways, back to the Anunnaki. So they like, I don't know, like get some dirt. It's still so funny. Like, one hand is like, yes, I am greater than everything. I can make anything out of anything. I have brought something out of nothing. Like, basically, super powerful God. And then the other is like, I just fucking made him out of some dirt, you know? Why not? Rub it together, see what happens. And basically, if another thing about the old Jewish faith is golems and stuff. So that would mean all humans are golems because it's just clay that's had life breathed into it. So basically, humans are golems. I told you I was going to get sidetracked. So Enki breathes life into dirt, or he puts the Anunnaki genes and science material into the Homo Erectus, makes Homo sapiens, and then those people, like, you know, since they have like God's genes in them, they're going to start getting smarter. So in the Bible, where it says that Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, and like that's why she knows stuff, because before, like, it kind of doesn't say outright, but it kind of alludes to, before Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, that they were fucking idiots and didn't know anything. And as soon as they ate this, they're like, oh shit, we know stuff now. Basically, that would have been, I guess, maybe the Anunnaki genes inside of them just kind of like coming to life and evolving and stuff. But, okay. So this happens. So, like, we have these people mining and getting the gold for them. And then this is where the Nephilim come in, because you're like asking yourself, so is this human who is half Homo erectus, half Anunnaki, the Nephilim, like half angel, half human? No. This is the first part of what, because that's humans now. So they're no longer like cave people, or however you want to say it. They're humans. And the Nephilim part come in because, I guess, just like humans, the Anunnaki are a bunch of dirty perverts, and they see the humans working, and then they see the girl humans working, and they're like, you know, those people we made to mine for us, they kind of got a thing on them, you know. Maybe we should go, I don't know, have sex with these humans. And that's where the Nephilim came from, because the Anunnaki went down and they started having sex with the humans, and that's where the Nephilim came out. So, I promised you scripture. I'm going to read the part that in my version of the Bible that talks about this, and this is Genesis chapter 6, and I'm going to just give you verse 1 to 4 to kind of bookend it a bit, because if I just give you the specific time they say the word Nephilim, then that won't be good. So Genesis chapter 6, verse 1 to 4. When people began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God, these are what he's calling the Anunnaki, because this is what, like, see, this is what I mean. Like, when you're interpreting the Bible talk, it's like when you're in grade 9 and 10, and you had to, like, interpret Shakespeare and just, like, try not to die of boredom because you hate Victorian speech. That might have been just me, but I'm not a fan of Shakespeare. But anyway, so really, if you're like, the main point of this is you can interpret the Bible in many, many different ways. Like, if you're just taking it literally, you're like, oh, sons of man, eh? Wasn't that Adam, the son of man? Or the son of God? You're like, wait, wasn't that? And then you're like, wait, are the angels sons of gods? And then you can get into like all this other like speculative stuff about the religion, where angels were God's first try at humans, but he didn't give them souls. But I feel like I've led you on enough dimly lit paths through the woods, so I should try to like we're about 50 minutes in, so I should probably try to keep this cohesive. Okay, I'm just going to start over because I got distracted and you probably forgot what I read anyway. So, when people began to multiply on the face of the ground and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all that they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of humans, who bore children to them. These were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. Like, you could clearly see what I was talking about the Bible. Like, that was like, what, 6 sentences, one good paragraph? And if you don't have about 20 questions from what I just read, then you weren't paying attention. So it's like, one, we got sons of God. Like, who are they? They the angels. Okay, sure. Why are they sons? Are they dudes? Are they girl angels? Obviously not. Why? And then they see, and I can answer one question because it says they took wives. Back then, if you had sex with a woman, she was just married to you. That's how it worked. Sorry, ladies. Genesis was very patriarchal, and it wasn't fun to be a woman back then. I mean, it was barely tolerable to be a dude. Imagine just like, oh, and this other thing, like these angels just come down and they're like, yo, we saw your women, we're taking some as wives. And then the dudes are like, I'm just fucking mining gold, minding my own business, slaving away for you, giving you all this dumb yellow metal you want, and now you come and take the only thing I like, which is our women, because you thought they were like dope looking from wherever you were. And then it's like, and then God says he doesn't like that his, where is it? I gotta read this again. He says, my spirit shall not abide. So basically, these fucking bird boy angels stick their feather dicks in humans and make these Nephilim. And then God's like, well, I can't have I can't have my spirit in these people. I'm going to make it so people don't live that long. Because before that, people were living to like 1,000. Like, they're just fucking, woo, party time. Well, I guess it wasn't party time because... Okay. I lied. This isn't still... What I read to you wasn't still when they're all mining for gold and stuff. This is way after. This is like after they kind of like spread out over the earth and then... Okay, can you forgive me? I mean, that's... So basically, like, humans, they had them... I guess... This is another thing about the Anunnaki that doesn't make sense. It's like, you make these slave labor kids, or slave labor people. You get the gold, and then you just let them spread out over the whole earth and make, like, very numerous people. So anyways, what happens is... these fucking bird boys start fucking the women, and they make Nephilims, which are half angel, half human, or half Anunnaki, half human. And then God's like, these things are too powerful. I can't have them live 1,000 years because it's like, and it says like the gods of old, like it also says in there, like, these are your gods of old. It's like, wait. You don't fucking talk about these heroes. Like it says, oh God, I gotta look it up again. So it says like, these are your heroes of old. Like, it doesn't talk about the heroes in the other parts of the Bible. And I guess this is what I meant, what I alluded to before when I was talking about it all being an anthology, was it's all these pieces of stories rammed together to try to make one cohesive narrative. And it's not very cohesive, from the first page of the Bible not making sense with 2 different tales of where Adam came from. And here's another example of it not being cohesive. Like, this is page 3, actually. So, When it said these were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. Okay. Where's this where's the renown? Like, I want to hear about these heroes. Like, are we missing some good superhero shit here? Like, is this what the Greek pantheon was? Like, Zeus and Hercules and stuff? Like, was Zeus an Anunnaki? And then he had sex with some human woman and made Hercules, who was a Nephilim? Like, is this overarching? Does this go into everything? Sorry, I had to reset there. I just had a coughing fit because apparently, if you talk for an hour by yourself in your apartment, it dries out your mouth and then you just cough. So, yeah, like I was wondering, like, where's the story of these heroes? Like, could you imagine if they're like, oh, by the way, we found all these other books of the Bible and it's all about dope fucking shit. Like, there's fucking people shooting lightning bolts at each other. There's Hercules. There's this other guy who runs fast. There's Hades, the god of the underworld. And also, are these heroes of renown? Are these all the Egyptian gods like Horus and Ra and Anubis? And do you like how I know like only 1 to 3 heroes of any of the other pantheons? Like the Egyptians, I know a couple. Oh, there's Isis and Osiris, and that's all I know about that. And then there's like Greek, and then there's Viking, Norse. See, I didn't even have to Google that. Like Thor and Odin and Loki and the other ones. See, I'm good for 3. You give me any group of gods, and I'm good for 3. So yeah, wouldn't that be dope if instead of reading about like, I didn't get into it yet, but like I was saying, like the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, it gets very tedious because like I think it's Exodus is like when Moses takes the people and they leave. And then directly after that is like Numbers and Leviticus. And half of Numbers is them talking about what sacrifices. Oh, no, wait, that's Leviticus. Is them talking about what sacrifices to make for what sins they do and how to do it. And then it goes into like in excruciating detail explains like the measurements and how to build the Ark of the Covenant and stuff. Like, you left out the heroes of renown and you gave me a ledger of which sacrifices to do and like how many times I'm supposed to kill turtle doves and stuff. Like, can we just have the cool stuff and you can like, I don't know, give me the less than Cliff Notes versions of which sacrifices to do? Because we get it. Like, you want us to fucking burn stuff to get rid of our sins. I'll talk about that in a future episode. Do you like how I just said something was so dumb and boring? And then I'm like, oh, I'll talk about that later. Like, the thing that I just said was super dumb and boring. I'll talk about that. And so, where am I? I think we're okay. So we're talking about the Anunnaki. They came down. They started porking our women. Like, I'm defensive that back in like biblical times, like right before Noah, these angels came down and had sex with these people. Actually, funny story. Maybe in another future episode, I'll talk about Noah because these Nephilims were screwing around, and that's that's a reason why God fucking deluged the earth. So here's what we're talking about. So the sons of God, which are the angels / Anunnaki, came down, had sex with our women, made heroes / giants / dudes who were awesome. There's women in there too. I don't want to be sexist. And then God was like, whoa, what the fuck? These people are way too powerful. You can only live 120 years, which is a random number. But apparently 12's like, the Bible's full of numerology too, which I don't want to get into too much because if you saw that I can only remember 3 of the Norse gods, I'm not really going to remember all of the importance of numerology and stuff. And, oh yeah, so we only live 120 years. And then he's like, oh, yeah, by the way, fuck it. I'm just killing everybody because my boys fucked the humans and I couldn't keep a leash on them. So instead of like this all-powerful God being like, yo, could you angels not have sex with the people, please? Like, even if you take out the Anunnaki and we're going back to it's just God and the angels still had sex with the humans and made the Nephilims. Like, that's the biblical Nephilim. So, I mean, you're the all-powerful being. You don't have to kill all the humans because you're... I mean, I guess the humans were being kind of dickheads. They're like sinning and stuff and being wicked. It's such a rad word to say they were wicked. Like one of the titles in the Bible is one of the subheads is the wickedness of man. And that would be... I mean, if I was super pretentious, I would probably name this podcast that, but I'm just going to stick with the Dale Show because the wickedness of man will just make it sound like I'm the type of guy who writes poetry, and I am not. I mean, I used to when I was 18 to try and impress women because I wasn't an angel who could just go down and impregnate them with superheroes. I had to take like stupid tactics like writing poetry, and I'll read those poems and they're embarrassing, and I don't even think a woman would have let me give her a non-superhero baby after reading my poetry. The Nephilim, that's really the... Okay, they show up in three spots of the Bible, but the third one, Jude, is just kind of Jude writing a letter and being like, hey, remember these Nephilim people that were wicked and stuff? So the third reference to the Nephilim in the Bible is actually a guy referring to the second reference in the Bible. And the second reference of the Nephilim in the Bible is in Numbers 13, 32, and 33. So just to set it up, Numbers is the third book of the Bible. So, or wait, is it the fourth? Goes... You know, I like made a point to go through this at the beginning of the pod, and then I already forgot. That's why I have to like basically keep this Bible in front of me so I can look at stuff, because I just forgot. So it goes, okay, so it goes Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. So it's the fourth part of the Bible, fourth book of the Bible. So as you could tell, Moses is well onto his journey. Like, he's already left Egypt. They've already done their magic and stuff in Egypt. And so what happens here, the reason that the Nephilim show up, it's not because they're still Nephilim, because if you remember, God kind of doused the whole world and tried to kill all the Nephilim. But this is, I guess this is also another example of where the Bible kind of doesn't make sense. Because right before, like, God saved Noah and his sons, and it was supposed to have killed everybody else. And Moses is... So I'm just going to tell you how many generations this is after Noah. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's 14 generations after. So like that's like 400 years, maybe. I could add it up, but I probably should have done that. But I didn't. Hey, do you want to know the lineage of Noah since I've talked about it a little bit? Here, let's go. This is how you go from Noah to Moses. You go, Noah gave birth to Shem. Shem gave birth to Arpachshad. Hey, remember when I said I don't know how to pronounce names? You're going to see that right now. Arpachshad gave birth to Shelan. Shelan gave birth to Eber. Eber gave birth to Peleg. Peleg gave birth to Reu. Reu gave birth to Serug. Serug gave birth to Nahor. This is a fun song if you want to just like put some music behind this. Nahor gave birth to Terah. Terah gave birth to Abram, who later became Abraham. As you might know, he's a pretty big deal. He's the guy. He's Abram. turned into Abraham, he's the reason why Israel and Palestine are fighting each other, if you didn't know, because God made a pact with Abraham that he would give his descendants the Holy Land, the land of milk and honey, which is what that whole, like, I'm gesturing with my head because I'm holding the spot with my finger because I don't want to draw a circle in the air with my finger because I'll lose my place in these names. It's the whole Middle East stuff, like Palestine. In the Bible, it just calls them the land of Canaan, and all that stuff. But that's what that whole area is supposedly. Well, God, I'm gonna get in so much shit from this podcast. So Abraham gave birth to Isaac. Isaac gave birth to Jacob, and Jacob was renamed Israel. But Jacob gave birth to Joseph, Levi, and like 10 other dudes because there's like the 12. I think these became the 12 tribes. Oh, these became the 12 tribes of Israel, is the 12 sons of Jacob. So, anyways, this is where it gets kind of murky because Joseph went to Egypt and he was like broed down with the Pharaoh, and like that's something I'll have to talk about later, but it's all entangling. So basically Joseph broed down with the Pharaoh, and then Joseph had a bunch of kids, and then the new Pharaoh came in and forgot who Joseph was and was like, there's all these Israelites here. What are we doing? Let's make them slaves. And that's how all the Israelites became slaves in Egypt. And then one of Joseph's brother, Levi, they all had houses because they had so many people. So like the Levi, his house became the Levites. And in the Bible, it just says that someone from the house of Levi gave birth to Moses. So you don't know if that was like Levi's son, someone ancillarily related to Levi, but it was someone in Levi's house. So that's the lineage from Noah to Moses. And the reason why I brought this up in the first place was because everybody that's not in that lineage should have been killed with the flood. But if you go to Numbers 13:32, it reads, oh, I'm on the wrong page, sorry. Numbers, and so basically the reason that it's important that Moses had left Egypt is because as they're traveling from Egypt to the Promised Land, it's like going from east to west. Basically, I don't know if they go in a straight line. It says exactly where they camped along the way. If you want to read that, I'm not going to read that to you, because me trying to pronounce the lineage from Noah to Moses was hard enough to pronounce. So basically, as they're doing this, they sent spies ahead, and then Numbers 13:32-33 is what these spies are reporting back. And so they brought to the Israelites an unfavorable report of the land that they had spied out, saying, the land that we have gone through as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are great in size. You want to know why they're great in size? There we saw the Nephilim. Well, there you go. Shouldn't they all been dead in the flood? You know what I'm saying? Like, didn't God get pissed off that these people were going to live forever and made it so they could only live 120 years? And then it says, there we saw the Nephilim, the Anakites come from the Nephilim, and to ourselves we seemed like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. So, like before with the thing I read in Genesis, there's a lot to unpack here. It's only 2 sentences, or 2 verses, with 3 sentences maybe, but it's like, it brings up the Anakites, which are, I'd looked it up, it basically just says they're the sons of Anak, and then it says they're the descendants of Nephilim. So I was like, oh, maybe it'll tell us what the Anak are. It doesn't. It's just like, oh, Anak, and like it says like these 3 different people are the son, like the Nephilim. So yeah, I can't remember what. So that's the other time. I was just like, I forgot why I was talking about this, but I wanted to tell you all the time that the Nephilim were mentioned in the Bible, and that's the other time. And basically, so as I said before, with the elliptical orbit of the planet Nibiru, it makes it unbelievable. But the problem is, when you hear something like the Anunnaki in the Bible and you start to question, you're like, wait, was God and the angels aliens? It kind of just ruins your whole perception of the Bible, like happened to me. Like when I was a kid, I heard the Bible, I'm like, well, whatever, this is what was happening. And then when Zecharia Sitchin kind of, so it's a good example of seeing the Bible through regular eyes and then seeing it through red-pilled eyes, because now that I know about the Anunnaki, even though I don't think they're real and it like doesn't make much sense that would be able to happen, like the whole planet thing. But now that I know that, and it draws into question the validity of even like the angels and stuff, it kind of sours the whole experience of the Bible, because like then when you get to the part where God tells Noah to kill, or not Noah, God tells Moses to kill every living being in a country, you're like, well, that's not good. They probably shouldn't do that. And then, oh, and another thing, the funny thing was, remember that thing I read about the spies coming back and they said that the people were giants because they were like descendants of Nephilim? Well, the people that Moses was leading through the desert, they all got scared as a normal person would. They're like, yo, you're going to go fight giants. And these people are like, why did you bring us out of Egypt if we're just going to get shit kicked in the desert by giants? Ah. That's the face they made. They're like, ah. So God was like, got super pissed because he's God, and he always got pissed back then. And he was like, you guys aren't going to see the promised land anymore. Now you're going to be lost in the desert for 40 years. This is like some of the stuff I'm saying you might like pick up from the stuff you heard, like how the Israelites were lost in the desert for 40 years. This is why. Because they got scared of giants, and then God wanted to make sure they were all dead by the time they got to the promised land, so none of the people that were supposed to fight the giants could see the promised land. And that was his one fail-safe way to make, because he like promised he wouldn't kill everybody with like a flood or anything, so he was like, oh, I'm going to use time instead of water. So that's the Anunnaki, and I guess that's the introduction episode of the podcast on why I'm reading the Bible. It's basically because Zecharia Sitchin planted an earworm in my head about like, oh, the best way to say this is Zecharia Sitchin was talking about the Hebrew version of the Bible, and he's like, you can find proof of stuff in the Bible of like the Nephilim and the Anunnaki and stuff. And I was like, well, I want to hear this. I want to hear all this stuff. So I started listening to the Bible. And like I said, on page 1 of the Bible, there's that discrepancy between the way Adam was made, like the original version we all heard, and then the he was made from dirt version. And then I got super hooked because like I was going to try labor through and just see how much I could listen to it. I was like, wait, what? There's stuff I don't know about. And then you like on page 3, you get that little taste. You're like, wait, the heroes of old. Wait, there's heroes? And then like it goes further, like deeper, like when Moses was, sorry, if you don't know most of this stuff, I'm just assuming that you're like a person like me who kind of has a rough education of what goes on in the Bible and Bible tales. So basically, like I was saying, like Joseph's, like the Pharaoh didn't know Joseph's kid, like Joseph, and they got locked up. So what happened was the Pharaoh didn't want the Israelites to rise up against him, like, because he had them as slaves in Egypt. So he started making it that all the males would be killed. And then one of the guys from the house of Levi has a baby who turns out to be Moses. And then they put him in like a basket and like send him down the river. And then someone picks him up, and then he grows up, and they think he's an Egyptian, but then Moses finds out he's not, and then God talks to Moses. He's like, yo, get your people out of there. So Moses goes to the people, and he's like, hey, we got to get out of here. And this is all leading up to what I thought was cool. So Moses, like, I'll try to go over this more in the future. So Moses goes how am I going to prove to the Pharaoh that we're like super powerful and stuff? And God's like, do these miracles. So as he's doing like turning a stick into a snake and making it rain blood, the Pharaoh's magicians are like, we could do that too. And you hear this and you're like, wait, I never heard about the Pharaoh's magicians when I was a kid. He just had magicians that could like make it rain blood like the Slayer song. Like this is stuff that happened. So that's why I wanted to like listen to the audio tape of the Bible, because if it's talking about magic and stuff like that, I got to hear it all. So thanks for going on that journey with me. That was like, I don't know how the longest, once I edit out all the parts where I was overly dumb, how much this is going to be down to. Hopefully it's over an hour. Let me know what you thought. Like I said, this is the first time I've done a podcast by myself, so I'm kind of scared I kind of went off the rails there in a couple spots, but I hope I came back enough so that you can kind of follow the narrative of this podcast. If you want me to talk about anything I kind of glazed over in this podcast, just comment. Comment on the podcast, like wherever you're listening. I guess if you're listening to this audio on Spotify and stuff, you can't really leave a comment on there. But I'm going to try to put the video on YouTube. I'm not going to try. I'm going to do that. What I mean when I say I'm going to try is I will eventually. So you could comment on there. I guess you could send me an email. I might set up a specific email for the Dale Show, but until then, I guess just send it to Aberrant, ABERANT @gmail.com. And then if I set up a specific email for this podcast, I will tell you that in future shows. And then I will retroactively go back and put it in the comment or in the show notes for this. So if you're listening to this and it's not July 11th, 2021, and it's like sometime in the future, go check the show notes. There might be a Gmail link there to send me comments, and who knows, by then I might be rich and famous and I might have a whole staff to talk about all the stuff you want me to talk about. Yeah, I don't know how long I'm supposed to talk for. Usually on the other podcast, Outrage Factory, we kind of just talk for like an hour-ish until we run out of stuff. So I'm going to try to do the same thing. I'm going to make this like an hour-ish type of thing. I think it's probably good because my girlfriend will kill me if I go on. Like if I do a Joe Rogan 3-hour podcast, I think my girlfriend would like, what's it called when a girlfriend divorces you, breaks up with you? She would probably do that because she does not want to listen to me talk to myself for 3 hours long. I don't really know who else would. Yeah, this is I don't know, this is kind of like a thing for me. I've never done this before, so I'm just kind of like trying to come to terms with the fact that I just talked to myself for an hour and a half, and then I'm going to edit it down, and hopefully it turns into, hopefully I'm such as garbage into a gem. Hopefully I could turn this mud into a person that makes a whole race of people. No, just kidding. I hope I didn't leave any holes in my explanation of the Anunnaki. Of course, that's just the tip of the iceberg for the Anunnaki. So once again, I suggest you go listen to Zecharia Sitchin's The Anunnaki Reader, or pick it up, or just pick up any book. I think he has over 20 books, and I've only heard the one, and it was very good, so I would go listen to a bunch of other ones. The weird thing about the Anunnaki, though, is I was going to try to subtly weave this into while I was talking about it in pertaining to the Bible, but you know how I am at subtly working stuff in. But the cool thing about the Anunnaki is some people say that might be what Atlantis is. There you go. There's your little nugget to keep you going for the next little while. So I don't know how to end this. I never realized how talking so much made my mouth dry. Taking a drink. So I'm just gonna